What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay Ray, and this is Jay Ray's DIY. Welcome to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about a planer, and specifically an issue that I had today with the planer, and hopefully I can give you some tips on how to prevent this from happening to you. Before I get into too much detail about what happened on this planer, I'd like to ask you to hit that like button if you haven't already. So today I was just sending the board through this planer. It was an end grain cutting board that I was working on. I had glued on some pine strips to the edges to try to prevent tear out. So I was sending them through the planer when all of a sudden I heard this awful squealing noise. I shut off the planer immediately. Of course the board stopped and it wouldn't move any further. What ended up happening apparently was this bolt came out of this plate that holds down the knives on this planer. And then after I opened up the planer to see what was going on, I found out that the blade had bent. So I guess what happened, this had ended up getting pushed into the board and it pushed up against the knife edge, which bent the knife and that plate that holds the knives down. So this is what happened today, and I hope that there's a couple things that I can tell you to try to prevent this from happening to you. So if you've been following me, you probably saw a couple videos ago I just changed out the blades on this planer, so that's kind of bad news for me. You know, I just changed out the blades and now I'm gonna have to change them again, but I'm also gonna have to get a new plate for this. I was fortunate, I was able to find that they've got new plates for this on Amazon. They're about $19 a piece. So I'm going to go ahead and order 2 of them because some of the reviews I saw said that if you only order 1, it might be a little bit different weight than what's on your planer already, and it could throw it out of balance. So I ordered 2 because this is a 2-blade planer, and that way when it comes in, hopefully I won't have any issues with vibrations, and I can go ahead and start using this again to smooth out the boards that I've got going. So I think one of my big mistakes when I changed the blades out was I did not look up torque specs for these little bolts in order to tighten them down to the manufacturer's specifications. These blades are turning at a rather high rate of speed, and any vibrations typically will loosen up bolts instead of tightening them. I don't know why it works that way, but that just seems to be the way it works throughout all the industries that I've worked in through my career. So in order to try to prevent this in the future, I'm going to be looking up the torque spec for these, if they've got one on Porter Cable's website. If not, I'll try to make sure that I torque them down as good as I can. I'll look up the bolt size, because there's typically, if you can't find manufacturer recommended torque specs, there's typically bolt manufacturer torque specs for the size of bolts and the threads that you've got on them that you can use as a general guideline to torque these down to. So the second thing I'm thinking about doing to prevent this from happening in the future is maybe just putting a little bit of Loctite on these bolts when I put them back in. So I think putting a little bit of Loctite on there and getting them torqued to the manufacturer's specifications should help prevent these bolts from coming out in the future. That's not to say that there won't be incidents and there won't be other issues with the blades. So some of the research that I've been doing online has indicated that if you're running real hard woods through this planer that has this style of blade setup on it with the knife holders, that if you're running hardwoods like ash, hard rock maple, things like that, it could potentially get some of the splinters in between the blade and that knife hold down plate that's on there, and it could still end up bending it. If it ends up getting bent, you got to pull it out and put a new one on. So this was an unfortunate incident that happened to me today in the shop, and it did put some big gouges in the board. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get the board to look the way I wanted it to look. Originally, I was hoping to get a board that was about 2 inches thick, and now I'm thinking I'd probably be lucky if I can end up with a board that's about 1 3/8 inches thick by the time this is all said and done. So I hope this video will help you out in your shop in order to prevent this issue from happening to you. Of course, you might just take this as a practical guideline and go ahead and look up your manufacturer's specifications and what kind of maintenance that they recommend that you do to your planer to keep it in good working order so that you can prevent hardware failures like this from happening to you and destroying boards that you're working on. If you enjoyed this video and got some good ideas out of it, hopefully you'll hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future content coming from my channel. Thank you very much for watching. So when I was in the shop today, the planer did not hit the like button, as I hope that you'll do right now. I ended up using a different blade than what was unfortunately another incident that happened. Not another incident, but and could have been a So I hope this video will help you out in your shop. Let's see if I can stutter.